Right, so let's move on to our third topic, which is the UK post office scandal. Now, this is a huge topic and it's been going on for, I think, literally decades, but it's kind of come to a head recently. And although it's quite local to kind of the UK, it still has a massive, or one of the major culprits in it is the IT element of this news story. And obviously it's had a huge impact on the people who've worked for the post office organization, both personally and, kind of their livelihood, and even in some cases, unfortunately, that, people have been driven to so much despair because of, the accusations that were made against them, that they've actually taken their own lives as well, which I believe is, has happened to a few of those folks, which is very tragic indeed. So putting aside kind of the consequences and all that, there has been inquiries from the government around this, and I think that happened, was it late last year, early this year, when those inquiries started, Paul? Is that correct?
Oh, they've been running for quite some time. I mean, there've been a number, but the latest one I think has been running for, I probably find it's coming over a year. I mean, it's one of the huge inquiries that's just going to go on and on and on and rumble on and on. I think you can get a bit sort of cynical about the amount of money being spent, on lawyers who are having an absolute field day, but we need to get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely, definitely. And I think that, the people who are accused need to have their sort of, their justice.
Yes, that needs to be resolved without any further delay. Just get on and do it, guys.
Okay, so just to kind of give a gist of it to the audience in terms of the story itself. So what happened was a number of post office masters and mistresses, as they're called. So these people actually work in the post offices locations all around the country. The post office is it a private company now, the PO?
Well, no, it's still, I think the government is still the major shareholder.
Okay.
They've split it up into bits, some of which have been given a level of independence to try and deal with the local parcels carriers that come along. And other bits of it that are still very much, I mean, it's basically got a government warrant or a royal warrant to deliver post. There is a legal requirement for it to do that. So it's not a competitive environment in that sense. Having said that, of course, and actually the post office did block one of the parcel carriers from actually providing a postal service.
Right. Okay.
So I mean, but yeah, you still need to think about it as a publicly owned organization. Sorry, a government-owned organization. We use the term public in the UK to say government, but it's effectively government-run.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of the post office entity. Now, what's happened is that they've been using a piece of software called Horizon. Horizon is developed by Fujitsu, is my understanding, and I presume this kind of, I don't know the sort of the details of the architecture of it, but it's kind of one of those sort of back-end systems that records all of your transactions and things like that. Is that correct?
Oh,
near that?
No, I've sort of delved into it, and I've got a corner of me is slightly interested because the company I worked for at the time, when this was being first put out to tender, was Unisys, and Unisys became second in the bidding.
Okay.
Huge tender. I wasn't on the team at all, but we were aware of what was going on. No, I mean, it started out when it was still ICL, before Fujitsu bought ICL. Now, ICL was one of, it was a British computer company. It was a major supplier of IT systems, mostly mainframes, to the British government. And, they've suffered as most of the mainframe people did, who, IBM survived, one or two others just about surviving, but ICL was bought by Fujitsu after they'd won the contract.
Okay.
So ICL won the contract originally to deliver basically a system of giving everybody who was on benefits almost like a credit card, and using a credit card for them to take their. they ran into real problems trying to get that one up and running, and then thought, well, we've just given this huge contract out. What can we use it for? Let's use it to modernize the branch network.
Ah, okay.
And
that's when it came in. Okay.
And the links to the back office system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So actually, it is a distributed system that has a branch element and a back office element.
Yeah.
And boy, they didn't understand how to build it.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's no. I think it's quite similar to a project I worked for on at Sainsbury's. So it's kind of a picking up all the the supermarket sort of transactions and everything that was going on there, and then kind of shunting that back to HQ at some point. I think that was part of the process. Okay, so what's happened is, the point is that what's happened with that is that that system has had some bugs in it, so to speak, and those bugs have meant that certain figures that are coming in from all of these post office branches seem inaccurate, or they kind of don't tally up with what the post office sort of HQ is probably expecting those, the cost of those or the value of those transactions. And then that's meant that the sub postmasters and mistresses have actually been accused of stealing that the difference, and kind of skimming from transactions or whatever it is, or the benefits or the sales of things like stamps, presumably, or whatever else. I don't know the details, and I might be doing it injustice, but the point is that those people who've worked at those branches have actually been accused of stealing from the post office
and prosecuted,
yeah, as well. So been
jail terms, some of them,
yeah, and given prison terms and things like that. So yeah, and that's obviously has caused huge trauma, because all these people were innocent. They obviously couldn't prove it. Some of the information has come out recently, I think, in the inquiries, that when did the post office knew about these bugs, and so on. And I think the leadership's kind of maybe been a little bit coy about that, and kind of said, oh, I don't know, I can't remember. Well, I'm not really sure. Things like that. A lot of the BBC reports were kind of talking about the boss of Fujitsu Europe saying, yeah, clearly we've kind of let society down, yes, and the sub postmasters, but then when they kind of being asked about the what do they call them, the beds, the bugs, errors, and defects, so they call that the short term for that is, or the acronym for that is beds. He said, I think it was Paul Patterson, is it, the head of Fujitsu Europe, and he's kind of admitted to the beds, and he said that they have actually been with the Horizon software right from the very start, but then they said, okay, well, so when was that? And it was kind of, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a response.
The system was flawed from day one, and it was, and I've some other commentator likened it to saying to people who had only ever played around with PCs from a sort of development and networking point of view, giving them a system that actually needed to have the sort of stability and capability of a mainframe. So things like just the acid test, the atomicity. Is it one, if you get an error, does it roll the whole thing back, or do you get partial happen? Right. And it's one that was, it wasn't, if it was, you were talking about Sainsbury's, Sainsbury's used to do an overnight upload of everything that had happened in the branch during the day. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. And if the upload, if the upload fails, they'll run the upload again. Yeah. This was doing a level of online across the network and in branch. So in branch work and online, before the days of really reliable networks from the branch upwards. So
it's kind of a real-time thing.
So semi-real, in certain aspects, it was real time, and having to go back to the main system to get. But but it was not, it didn't have the properties of an acid system, you know, proper atomicity and, you know, all those sort of issues around online transaction processing. So if a network connection failed halfway through a transaction, let's say, and I won't get, you know, we can make this too complicated, but the front end says, I've sold this stuff. The back end then says, yeah, but I never got the money for it because the network stopped at the time. Network comes back up. It doesn't know it had that problem. Because it wasn't one out, all out. You know, when you get a proper OLTP system, if you get a failure anywhere before the full transaction is completed, you get no transaction.
Right.
That didn't happen in this one. So they were doing partial transactions. You know, and they knew about this quite early on. I mean, this is, and it's then you get cultural issues coming in. There's, I'm not going to own up to this. Oh, well, let's try and fix it. And, you know, and it got worse. And the bigger the hole they dug, the more they lied, basically.
So I think this has been, you know, a complete disaster. And then to allow, you know, the issue to be kind of, you know, point or allow the finger to be pointed at these, you know, innocent people, which I think to date only, I don't know the full number of how many actually were prosecuted, but only 93 of them of the wrongful convictions, according to the BBC report, I believe, said have actually been overturned, while thousands, there you go, are still waiting for compensation settlements. And this has been going on for more than 20 years, apparently. So, I mean, for those who kind of accepted the, you know, the prosecution, obviously those, you know, kind of probably ended up at the back of the queue when it came to, you know, trying to prove their innocence. But those obviously who stuck with it and, you know, fought through have obviously been, you know, now vindicated.
I think, to be fair, you know, the government has tried to speed up things, and certainly the ones who were prosecuted and put in jail have had the whole thing quashed since. But getting the money actually has been more of an issue, and we can all wonder why, and there's all sorts of arguments as to why it's taken so long. But you really just want to turn around and say, no, just fix it. This is a one-off. No, you know, because there's lawyers are all getting involved, saying if you create the precedent of just wiping all their debts out, you know, all those sort of things, what happens in the future?
And I mean, you know, Fujitsu have also said that they have a moral moral obligation to compensate post office victims. But let's get on with it then.
Let's get on with it. Absolutely. So, but it is an interesting, you know, public sector procurement. Very difficult, which it has its own challenges, you know, very difficult architecture they tried to put together with teams of people who'd never really been involved in that sort of environment. It's really...
So there is a technical, I think, sort of architecture design element to it. But I mean, you know, just on the piece around, I mean, you know, that technical piece, there's a lot of kind of, you know, distributed systems. So it's not like it cannot be done. It's just maybe you just had the wrong people who couldn't really do it. And as you said, they were inexperienced.
When they started, 1996, 97. You know, the
dial-up modems.
Absolutely.
56K was as fast as you could go.
And you had most places used sort of dumb terminals to communicate with mainframes at the back end. If you had distributed systems, by and large, they weren't trying to communicate in anywhere near real time with a back end system. And so here you've got ones, oh, right, let's go down this particular route. And you think, you know, with people who, you know, so you're using technology that's not proven with people who've never had to try to do that in the past, you know, and there were so many places that could go wrong. And then the public sector culture of, you know, cover your backsides kicked in, and you get this disaster. It's awful, but you know, there is elements of, you know, we need to learn from it. You're right, distributed systems now, shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, and also when you start having, you know, when you start kind of seeing that there is a, you know, there's now that many people being accused. I mean, it's surely must have, the post office must have, and the leadership there must have kind of appreciated that surely we can't have that many crooked people working for us. You know, what's the thing when they say when it's, you know, once it's an accident, twice it's a coincidence, three times a pattern.
Yeah.
Right? You've gone way beyond three, right? You've like had thousands of this stuff happening. So why didn't you say, hang on, there's a pattern going on here. Surely it cannot be. And normally people, you know, find a few people here and there of kind of, you know, accused of stealing or, you know, embezzlement or whatever it is within an organization. Sure. But that's like an infrequent, even in like massive, you know, corporations that have like thousands and, you know, of people, millions of people kind of working for them. It's not an everyday thing that happens. So when the post office kind of, you know, came across it, they're not saying, well, hang on, do we really have that many people that are crooked working for us? This is like, you know, abnormally big.
Unfortunately, you get this sort of, okay, what's the implication of us admitting this is, we got it wrong? You know, and you see this over and over again in that people are going, I really don't want to have to make a decision that says I admit I was wrong, because it leaves us open to huge reparations. And you know, but company boards do sometimes think like that, and it happens in the public sector more than we'd like to understand. You know.
Well, I mean, evidently, I think the, you know, the post office certainly have kind of seemed to have thought that.
Oh, yeah.
Considering, you know, they've, like I said, there were some reports specifically that asked, well, when did you realize that the Horizon system was actually flawed and had, you know, all these beds in it, so-called beds, the bugs and so on.
They lost the ability to say what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, and
that's lost that ability as an organization.
Yeah, and that's I think that's a poor reflection of their character, really, and the people. All of the scruples of all the people who actually work there, from, you know, from the kind of the IT teams and the developers at Fujitsu all the way to the board at the post office.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. Bye for now.